Okay, so let's continue with ggplot2 for histogram. We are trying to draw a histogram with one variable. Okay, so the data set that we are going to use right now is faithful. So please make sure you have your data. So right now the structure of faithful is actually data frame. We have 272 observations and two variables. So the variables that we have is eruptions and weighting. So both of this is numerical data. So what we are trying to do is, let's try to check for the bin size. Okay, let's do this. So bin size, this is the formula for bin size. So the range and in the bracket faithful $sign weighting. This is actually give the minimum and the maximum waiting times, and the difference, the DIF in the brackets, actually we just want to calculate the maximum minus minimum, and then divided by 15. Why we divide it by 15? Because we set the bin width, so the histogram has 15 bins. All right, let's try to draw the histogram. Okay, so if you do not have a function ggplot2, please check your package. Please make sure you tick your ggplot2. Sometimes whenever we restart our R, we have to reinstall. Okay, so what we get from this one, if we look at the codes line by lines, the ggplot2 is actually the ggplot is our function, and in the bracket faithful is uh, our data. We tell ggplot that the variable on the x-axis is actually weighting, so x equals to weighting, and in geom underscore histogram is actually what builds the histogram. We tell R that the geometric that we want is actually histogram, and then the bin width equals to the bin size. This controls the bin size, and then fill equals to light blue. This fill the bar, so this is our bar, and then the color is light blue, and then color equals to black, adds a black border, so we do have the black border, and then this is what we got for our histogram. So if you notice over here, we do not have any labeling, so this is what we got. We can do for the next one, which is histogram for group data. So this time around, I'm going to use different data. So let's see whether we do have the data in our R, because sometimes we don't. All right, so copy the codes. So the data that we want to use is birth WT, and then x-axis, we want it to be variable BWT, and then we want to get histogram, so geom underscore histogram, and fill with white, color equals to black. We want to have the border equals to black, and facet underscore grid, smoke tilde dot. So let's try to see what happened. Okay, so actually for this one, we compare that the facet. What does it mean by the facet underscore grid and smoke tilde? This actually split the histogram into two panels based on the smoke. So smoke equals to 0. This is actually for non-smokers, and then smoke equals to 1. This is actually for smokers. So actually we can compare the distribution between smoking and non-smoking mother for the birth of their babies. So those who do not smoking actually have a better or healthier babies compared to those who smoke. All right, so next we want to use the same data set, but then we want to have the histogram with the normal curve. So we want to have the normal curve. So the coding would be, so if you compare with the above, so let's try to run this code first. All right, so this is our data. So if you get the warning message, just remember that ggplot2 also you need to reinstall because maybe sometimes we have a newer version than what I have in my computer. So let's try to explain. So AES in the bracket Y equals to dot dot density. This actually rescale the histogram so that the area equals to 1 because we want to overlay the curve on the same graph. So fill equals to dot dot count. This is actually bars shaded according to counts. So if you have the lower frequency, we got darker color. And then higher frequency, we got lighter color. So this is what does it mean lah. And then we have the stat underscore function. So fun equals to the norm, and then the color is red. This actually overlays the normal distribution curve. So we want the graph to have a normal distribution curve. And then the arguments equals to least, and then in the bracket mean and standard deviation. This actually tells R to compute the curve using sample mean and standard deviation of birth weight. So the results, we get the histogram and the theoretical normal curve. Whether we want to check whether our graph is close to more normal or not. So if you look at the graph, it is slightly not normal, but then yeah, we just want to compare with the actual data is the histogram, and this is our theoretical normal curve. So next we are going to continue with our box plot. Okay, so before we proceed with our box plot using ggplot2, we have to recap what is a box plot. So first of all, for box plot, we actually summarize the distribution of a data set using the minimum value, the quartile, the median, the third quartile, and the maximum value. And we also want to highlight the outliers if we have the outliers. And we have the whiskers, which represent the range excluding the outliers. And we will try to draw the single box plot first. So for box plot, using ggplot2, we have the ggplot function, and then this is our data, and then we want y equals to bwt. This is our variable, and then we want to get the box plot, so we choose the geom underscore box plot. So this is our simple box plot, and if we want to put the theme to our box plot, and we want to draw for group box plot. So let's try to, this is actually single, and then we want to get the group for group 1, and we want to add some themes. We can try to install GG themes. If you do not have the GG themes, install GG themes. So install the package, and yeah, run the library, and then ggplot2. This is our data, and we want to treat smoke is actually factor, so we have to tell R to treat it as factor, and our y variable is actually bwt, and then we want geom box plot our theme to be clean. Okay, so this is what we get from our codes just now. So actually this is very good if you want to compare between two factor variables. So for this case, we have either you smoke or you do not smoke. And then next, let's try to use a real data set. I'm going to paste our coding first here, and then we will discuss about what are the variable. So I'm going to take the data from raw GitHub user content. So this is the link. I'm going to save it under key underscore crop underscore yield, and then we have countries. So this is the vector name of the countries, and then let's try to run the data from key underscore crop underscore yield. Pipe in the data, and I want to filter it must be equals to the country. So this is what we are interested, only the entity that related to this what we specifically mentioned, and that's what our data that we want to focus on. And then this is the ggplot. AES is the entity. So we have the character over here. If you notice, we have the character entity codes, and then we have year, rise, and etc. So we specifically mention we want the entity, we want the rise, ton per hectare, and then we want it to draw geom box plot. Okay, and then we have the jitter. Jitter, I'm going to explain it later. Geom underscore jitter, width equals to 0.5, the title, the lab, the theme, and then I want it to be centered for the theme. Let's try to run this one. What happened? Again, if you do not have this one, so don't forget to have deployer package. So deployer. So sometimes we have to use like multiple library at the same times. Alright, so this is our box plot. Okay, so if you notice here, the countries that we select is just what we have in our vector: the China, the Bangladesh, the Philippines, the United States. And then we are going to ignore the rest of the countries that do not have in our vector. And then we compare this group, and then we do have the custom themes. So jitter actually adds the scattered point for better visibility. So we want to see whether it is the spread of our data. So looks it's very much easier actually if compared to if you look at your, this is without the spread, without the jitter. But if we put the jitter, we can see the distribution better, but then it depends on the preference. And then if you want to do some fancy styling, we do not want it to be like this, we can do some changes to it. Let's proceed. Okay, so let's proceed to the next one. So still we are using the same data. We filter it according to the countries that we are interested in. And then we are still using the entity as the axis, and the rise in tons and rise in hectare, rise ton per hectare as our y variable. But this time around we want it to fill equals to entity. So let's see what happened after this. Geom box plot, and then for the geom jitter, the size, the color, and the scale tableau, we state the color and the coordinate flip. Okay, let's see what happened to our graph. So we will get much better in terms of color. For the jitter, I think the size 0.5, and then the color is actually light gray with the specific number over here, and then the size equals to 1. Okay, and then for scale underscore fill underscore w, for the palette equals to classic 10 light. So we do not want to specifically mention, because we do have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 countries. It's very difficult if you want to mention one by one. So we just mention that we want to use what palette, and then the coordinate we flip it. Before this, the entity is x, but this time around the entity is our y. So it depends on the variable. So you can do so many things if you want to have the changes to your graph. It depends to your preference. If you want to use your theme, simpler theme, you can always change it to your customized theme. And then that's all. I hope that you got some knowledge about how to conduct graph using ggplot 2 package and base package. And you can always try. Please refer to the notes to explore so much more about the axis, annotating, setting, and etc. So that's all. Thank you for watching.